Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello everyone. We are from group 6 and we will discuss about Pidgin and Creole language. But firstly, I want to introduce the member of group 6. The first one is me, Asahara Karina, and then Sakila Aditriana, and then Nur Aida, and Nur Hadra Said, and then Verdayanti, and the last speaker is Ananda Nur Alpia. Okay, firstly, we need to know the difference between Pidgin and Creole. So, what is Pidgin? Pidgin is described as a language created due to communication factors between speakers of different language. In this case, the speaker creates a language system by utilizing existing language elements and is used by the two speech communities. So, Pidgin is a language that has no native speaker, while Creole is described as a continuation of a Pidgin which has native speaker as a new official language. Okay, next slide. As the Duke of Edinburgh said in a speech at the English Union Conference in Ottawa, in Papua New Guinea or PNG, parents teach their children to Pidgin as their mother tongue, which language is formed due to the influence of elements of English and Papuan language. Because of the language, Pidgin changed to Creole. Example of the word talk Pidgin are no good, it means not good, and then kill him, it means kill him, and then bye, it means bye and bye. Based on the example above, talk Pidgin is almost the same as English. There is only simplification in the vocabulary. Example of sentence are me cooking rice. It means I cook rice, and then am I reading book? It means he is reading book. It was heard that features of the forming language were not clearly visible. Children who teach talk Pidgin as their first language will not know if the language used is a creolization of English. Okay guys, I think it's enough. The next material will be explained by my friend. Thank you.
I am Sakila Detriana as a second speaker, and I want to continue my friend's explanation. Now we will talk about the fact and opinion about Pidgin and Creole. First, Pidgin and Creole language are spoken mainly in third world countries. Second, their role there is intimately connected with a variety of political and social questions. Third, there are probably more than 100 Pidgin and Creole language in daily use around the world, and more than speakers of this language than there are of Swedish. In fact, at the last, talk Pidgin is the largest language in the South Pacific today, with as many as 2 million speakers. In addition, over 250,000 Melanesians in Vanuatu and Solomon Island speaks related varieties. Next slide, we will talk about terms, English lexicon or lexifier, Pidgin and Creole. Thus, in the case of talk Pidgin, English is the substrate and the indigenous language of PNG are the substrate. In the case of Haitian Creole French, French is the superstate and West African language is the substrate, because the Creole emerged among a linguistically mixed population of slaves brought to Haiti from West Africa. Creoles recognize two major groups of language, the Atlantic and the Pacific, according to historical, geographic, and linguistic factors. So the Atlantic group was established primarily during the 17th and the 18th centuries in the Caribbean and West Africa. Meanwhile, the Pacific group originated primarily in the 19th. And the next slide will be presented by my friends. Thank you.
Okay, I'm the third speaker of this presentation, so let's move on the origins and structures. The example of Pidgin Norfolk Creole illustrates how the questions of Pidgin's Creole origins cannot easily be discussed separately from an account of their structural characteristics. In fact, some time ago, scholars noted in the connection with Jamaican Creole that the most striking differences between the deepest varieties of Creole and those closest to English lay not so much in phonology and vocabulary as in grammar. Many exposed the view that all the European-based Pidgins and Creoles were originally descended from 15th century Portuguese Pidgins, first used along the African coast and later carried to Indian and the Far East. The Romansh linguist Schackart 1842 until 1927, often called the father of Creole studies, who used data from Pidgin and Creole languages to argue prevailing 19th century views on the regularity of sound chants. Syntax. The existence of common feature of syntax is not easily explained by diffusions. For example, the fact that a number of Creoles use the same word to mark the grammatical functions of both possessions have an existence there is are. In most English-based Creole, a form of the word can serve these functions. Compare, for example, how one would say there is existence, a woman who has possessions, a daughter. Morphology. In fact, there is readily little to be said about morphology in Pidgins and Creole, since lack of it is one of the defining characteristics of the Pidginizations process. For example, we can compare Yimas, a language spoken in the Sepik region of Papua New Guinea, with Pidgin Emacs, a variety used for intertribal trade.
My name is Nurhadra Said, and I will explain about my material. The next is phonology. On the whole, the phonology of Creoles has been less well investigated than their syntax, and within the domain of phonology, there is scant information on suprasegmental phonemes such as tone, stress, and intonation. Pidgins and Creoles do not have a single phonology, and phonology remains the least stable system in otherwise stabilized Pidgins. As I have shown, phonological variability may be due to substratum and superstrate influences as well as universe developmental tendencies, but it is also affected by external factors such as education, sex, age, and equational history. This means that variant pronunciation may be found for the same item even within a small group of speakers. Expression of opinions usually involves a steady increase in phonological. During the creolization, when the substrate exerts pressure on the creole phonological system may merge partially with that of the substrate language. This, the phonology of individual speaker of Tuk Pisin varies from heavily Anglicized to what some have called a core phonology. The core phonology is shared by all speakers of the language, while the Anglicized phonology makes the most of the consonant and vowel distinction in English. The next is lexicon. As not early, Pidgins and Creoles generally take their names for their lexical language, even though there is a great deal of variance in terms of the extent to which a particular language draws on its so-called lexifer for its vocabulary, and there is a variety of problems in determining the search of words due to phonological restructuring of the kind we have just examined. There are a number of consequences which follow from the fact that Pidgins and Creoles have a rather small number of lexical items, semantic generality, multifunctionality, circumlocution, and greater lexicalization. In Pidgins and Creoles, these metaphorical use are an important means of extending as rusticate vocabulary with limited syntax means. Extensions such as this may also represent an conspiracy between coding preference in indigenous language and universal preserve for semantic generality and regularity. Borrowing from English, however, is threatening to disrupt the unity of a great many semantic families which are linked by the metaphors. I think that's all from me. The next material will be explained by the fourth speaker. Thank you.
Is Ferdayanti. I am the fourth speaker. I would like to explain my material about the Creole continuum. The Creole continuum, a range of language varieties in an area undergoing decreolization, showing a continuous gradation from forms more like the underlying Creole to those approaching the standard language. The boundary between Pidgins and Creoles can't be defined in purely linguistic terms. Thus, some languages, such as Tok Pisin and West African Pidgin English, spoken widely in West Africa, may exist in both Pidgin and Creole forms, which display different degrees of structural expansion and stability depending on whether they are used by first or second language speakers. Creolization can take place at any point during the Pidgin's life cycle, ranging from a jargon to an expanded Pidgin. The term jargon refers to a speech variety with a minimal linguistic system and great individual variation used for communicating in a limited situation between speakers of different language. For example, trade. while a pigeon has a certain degree of stability. Once creolization has occurred, the evolutive changes that take place thereafter may make it impossible to identify a prior Creole or Pidgin stage. As in the case of Black English in the United States, which many linguists believe to be a variety in the late stages of decreolization. The term decreolization is used to refer to change which bring a Creole closer to its superstrate language. And there is some dissatisfaction with it because some changes may not be modified by influence from the lexifier language. In other words, not all changes are unidirectional. Some may make the Creole more different from its superstrate, and some make it only superficial more similar, such as the case of Haydn Hawaii Creole English. The terms Basilec, Mesolec, and Acrolec are used to describe the range of varieties often found after creolization. Maybe it's all from me. Thank you. And the next material will be explained by the next speaker.
My name is Ananda Nur Alivia and I am the last speaker. Now I'm going to talk about pigeons and creoles in social context. In the Pacific, for instance, only Tok Pisin and Bislama have received some official recognition. Tok Pisin is a de facto official language in Papua New Guinea spoken by more than half of the population of 4 million. However, English is still the most widely used official medium of education, despite initiatives in the 90s to introduce education in a number of vernacular languages. There is also another pidgin language, Hirimotu, based on the indigenous language Motu, which shares the same de facto official status as Tok Pisin. In practice, all this means is that Hirimotu and Tok Pisin may be used in the House of Assembly, the country's main legislative body. In fact, most business is conducted in Tok Pisin, the most widely shared language among the members. Although Bislama is recognized by the Constitution of Vanuatu as the national language of the country, paradoxically, it is forbidden in the school. Thus, Vanuatu may be the only country in the world which forbids the use of its national language. English and French, the languages of the former colonial powers, are still the official languages of education. Although Australian Creole does not have any official status, it has been used in bilingual education programs in parts of Australia. In Papua New Guinea, most of the teachers surveyed want to retain English, despite the fact that they regarded themselves as more proficient in their vernacular languages and Tok Pisin, and agreed that the use of Tok Pisin would enhance communication in the classroom, as well as help their pupils to read better in English. I think it's enough for our explanation. Thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.